Now, the United Nations Security Council is set to hold an emergency meeting later today to discuss the fall of President Bashar al-Assad's regime in Syria following a lightning offensive by rebel groups. After 13 years of civil war, Syria's opposition militias sensed an opportunity to loosen al-Assad's grip on power. The meeting was requested by Russia, a key ally of the former president. This after state media in Moscow said al-Assad and his family had been granted asylum. US President Joe Biden has described the fall of al-Assad's government as a fundamental act of justice after decades of repression, but also a moment of risk and uncertainty. All right, for more on Bashar al-Assad, I'm joined from Moscow by SABC News correspondent Dasha Cherny-shova. Thanks for joining us, Dasha. Many say the ousting of Bashar al-Assad was unthinkable a week ago when the rebels began this offensive. It was unthinkable because this is a political strongman. Many would have never thought that here he would seek refuge in the country of his longtime ally, President Putin. What has Putin had to say about the regime change in Syria?
Well, we have heard the Kremlin spokesman addressing this issue. The spokesman, Dmitry Peskov, has confirmed that Bashar al-Assad, as well as his family, have been granted political asylum in Russia by the Russian president himself. However, his whereabouts have not been confirmed by the Kremlin. And Peskov also didn't say if there could be the possibility of a meeting between Putin and Assad in Moscow, saying that the official schedule of the Russian president does not include any such meeting. Meanwhile, what we understand that Moscow is clearly understanding that the situation in Syria is very volatile, and Russia is trying to make sure that the safety of its bases in Syria, as well as the safety of the Russian civilians and Russian citizens in Syria, is preserved. Therefore, Russia remains in contact with the military opposition of Syria, and Moscow says that it is yet to be established by the new authorities in the discussions that they will be having with the Russian representative whether the Russian military presence in Syria will remain as such. But what is clear is that Moscow is definitely trying to build the bridges and to make sure that it has established contacts with the new opposition that is coming to force in Syria. Having said that, we have seen on Monday the old Syrian flag at the embassy of Syria in the Russian capital being replaced with a new one, yet as another symbol that Moscow is willing to cooperate, while also being known as the staunch ally of Bashar al-Assad's government.
It's quite interesting, honestly, especially that aspect that President Putin has no intention to meet with al-Assad, although he is in the country now. But post the ousting, the media space is littered right now with opinion pieces on what the ousting of al-Assad means for Russia. Many saying it's a huge blow to Putin, which highlights the fragility of his own rule, which could mean perhaps a weaker hand going into negotiations to end the war in Ukraine. Is Russia viewing it as a blow?
Well, if you read the Russian media, you certainly see the dominance of a bit different angle. What you see that it is more a blow to Iran, while Russian political analysts have unanimously been saying that it was not just the blow, not that a blow to Russia, but rather not enough friendship with Russia on the part of Syria. Many political analysts here have been saying that there have been many ideas suggested by Russia to Assad's government, including the political reform, given more representation to the minorities, given more representation to the opposition, as well as federalization of Syria. All those ideas, Moscow says, they have either not been implemented or have been rejected by the Assad government. For what reasons? That's unclear. That could have been pressure from Iran, many analysts say, or simply the unwillingness to implement those reforms. And therefore, the flow of events has taken as such, as Moscow has decided that it was no longer worth supporting the current authorities. Having said that, those are just the opinions. The official position in Moscow is that all those events in Syria have taken the whole world by surprise, including Moscow.
But I suppose it's a fresh perspective, because many were wondering how these rebels had managed just so quickly to actually topple al-Assad. But Donald Trump added his voice to those reacting to the toppling of al-Assad on social media, saying that the rebels were probably able to easily topple Bashar purely because Russia has its hands full right now, having lost 600,000 soldiers in the war in Ukraine. But many are questioning that specific figure of 600,000. Is it 600,000 soldiers that have been lost in that war?
Well, indeed, the Kremlin has reacted to this number. Actually, the first thing after this statement has been released, instead of just saying anything about Syria, that was on Sunday, they have said that this is the Ukrainian perspective, the Ukrainian view on the things, and actually the Russian losses are many times less than the losses of the Ukrainian side. Without naming any figures, this has been the comments from the Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov. Now, Russia has not updated the numbers on its own casualties, on the dead, on the wounded in the so-called special military operation in Ukraine. We don't know simply what those figures are at this stage, so certainly it is very difficult to answer this question. But speaking about the wider geopolitical repercussions, and that's very posed by the US President-elect Donald Trump, Russia has said that it is indeed open to negotiate with Ukraine, but Moscow does not really want to tie these events to the events in Syria. But obviously, if you talk to the political analysts, they do draw the direct connection between the fall of Assad's government as well as Russia's ongoing military operation in Ukraine.
Dasha, thank you very much for that update. That is SABC News correspondent Dasha Cherny-shova in Moscow for us this evening.